Now then, guys, welcome back to the Cycle Sunday podcast. Paul, how are you, chap?
I'm absolutely great. Thank you, Peter. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all, my friend. Not bad at all. Different backdrop again for those watching on YouTube. Now then, if you're listening to this having just watched the video that dropped on the channel this evening, you might well recognise the two backdrops because the end of that video, we've literally just filmed it. But the big news is today I rode the Ultra XR4 for the first time. And what we thought we'd do in this podcast is just talk about a few things, actually. Firstly, the experience of riding the bike. And we're going to pose a question together. Is a £13,000 bike noticeably better than a kind of £4,000 or £5,000 bike, which is what I've come from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're also going to deal with a couple of the questions and comments that came up from last week's video, the build video.
Yeah.
Which has had a really good response. It's not had the views that we'd hoped, but I kind of, in a way, didn't surprise me. But it's got fantastic retention time, so people are watching it all and making comments and enjoying it. And it was a very, very difficult video to film and to edit, but I think generally people have really enjoyed it. And we've had a really positive feedback from that, including feedback from Bianchi and Campag, which is always a good thing, right? So, so that's fantastic. So I've ridden the bike, mate.
So go on. First impressions. You've ridden now road bikes for 8 to 10 years. You've come from
older. 12, 13 years nearly.
12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Apologies. So 12 to 13 years you have been riding road bikes.
Yep.
You've ridden road bikes that... Now, what we also have to bear in mind is what price those bikes would be today. So if you look at your Giant Defy, which was around £1,000 when it was brand new 12, 13 years ago, that bike today would be a couple of £1,000.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So a nice quality alloy frame with carbon fibre fork. And what drivetrain was it?
It was originally Tiagra.
Tiagra, right.
Shimano
So
Tiagra, and then I upgraded it to 105.
Perfect. Which came from your Venge when you upgraded that to Di2.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So a Tiagra spec, high-end alloy frame with carbon fibre fork would be around 1,600 to 1,700 quid today. Okay. So let's compare apples with apples. Now in fairness, that would be a disc bike as well today, but we're deep diving semantics. So let's call it a 1,500-1,600 quid bike today. Yep. Your Venge, which is an all-carbon frame, all-carbon fork with Shimano Di2 on, would be, let's think about that. That would be around $6,000 today.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's compare. And of course, there will also be updates and upgrades over those years as well. But let's we're now comparing a 1,500 quid bike, a $6,000 bike to a 13,000 bike.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I'll preface this with I've done about 12 miles on the Bianchi. So and the reason I'm laughing at that, maybe this is a comment more for the guys that are kind of dipping in, are new to cycling and stuff, is I don't think you really know how well a bike fits you and how well it suits you until you sit on it for 3 or 4 hours. And you do like a 50, 60-mile bike ride. I think you do a 60-mile bike ride, you know whether the bike's good for you or not.
Yeah.
So I'll preface it with that.
Yeah. And I think you've also hit the nail on the head that all of the time that we've spent on the jig is ultimately to get the right frame size, to get the right bits and pieces fitted to that bike that we know we've got a good baseline for you to start from. But then it's important for the squishy organic thing that then is sat on the top to then bed themselves into that shape. But but also work hard at their own flexibility, their own stretching, their own body to be able to go and do those longer distances on it. So
Yeah.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go back to the Giant actually,
Yeah,
because I did 5 stages of the Tour de France on that bike,
yeah,
or the Tour de France route, and 2 of those were in the Pyrenees.
yeah,
So we did in Tourmalet and Soulor and Orbisque and some really proper spiky cols on that
yeah,
bike, and it was great.
yes,
However, obviously it was a little bit kind of heavier, but the biggest thing I noticed when I went from that bike to the Venge was the flexing in the frame
hmm,
that you don't notice unless you've ridden something that is stiffer. So the
yeah,
Venge was a super stiff bike.
yeah,
So, you do lose a little bit of the power that you put in through the pedals because the frame moves and twists.
yeah,
And that's the biggest thing I noticed, probably.
yeah,
Um, the other thing is just aesthetics. When I went from the Giant to the Venge was just a much, much better looking bike. It was a
hmm,
beautiful thing. But, I don't, first things for anyone listening, you can go out and buy, 1,600 to £2,000 bike, and you can do any cycling challenge you want on that.
agreed.
I put aero bars on the front and did the London Triathlon. So
Mhm.
I did some proper riding on that bike, and I did the Paris Roubaix Sportif on it. Albeit I put slightly bigger tires on it and double bar tape and stuff. But that Giant's done some proper riding, and that's why I'll never sell it.
Agreed.
So that's the first thing. Yes, we're talking about a super high end bike, but the low ones you can still do the amazing stuff.
Yeah,
And I bought an aluminium frame bike because I didn't know if I was going to like cycling, and I didn't want to go and spend a shed load of money on something that didn't float my boat, and that's why I bought it. And within 6 months of having it, I knew that I needed to buy a carbon fiber frame bike.
yeah,
Now I know, and we've talked about this before. There will be people out there that like metal frame bikes, be that some exotic material like titanium or
yes,
magnesium or
yes,
something really cool
yeah,
because they like or Reynolds tubing. They like the kind of more retro style.
yes,
Knock yourself out. That's
yes,
great.
yes,
I'm a carbon fiber lover.
yes,
I like carbon fiber
yes,
bikes. Okay. So I went to my Venge. Now the Venge, the other thing I'm going to add to this comparison is, so my Venge was a 2013 bike,
yes,
so it's 8 years old in terms of technology.
agreed.
It's a very aggressive aero bike. And it's quite interesting. I was watching a video on YouTube this evening and talking about aero bikes, and one of the comments on it was, the early aero bikes were stiff and very, very uncomfortable because they were just all about the shape.
Yeah,
Whereas a modern day aero bike like the Ultra XR4 is aerodynamic and light and comfortable potentially,
yeah,
or can be. So the Venge is a very stiff bike. One of the things it as a characteristic, and because I had to have a bike fit on it, and we changed the stem length just to make it, because I didn't get the right size frame. Because there's another thing; it's a 59-inch frame, centimeter frame.
yeah. 58.
I had 58. Sorry, I had to shorten the stem.
Yeah,
Which is a weird thing because it's a smaller frame, but I had to shorten the stem. But it made the bike quite twitchy.
hmm,
So at high speed, downhill high speed, it's actually quite a twitchy bike, and you have to be super careful with your body positioning and stuff. Otherwise, you get a bit of a wobble on the front, and that's not a nice place to be. So that's kind of my Venge. The Di2 stuff on my Venge, I just love the shifting of electronic shifting. And again, I've done some big rides on that as well. Then let's come to the Bianchi. Because, mate, seriously.
yeah,
I thought, look, the Venge is a good bike. The Bianchi, it's not going to be that much better. How wrong could I be?
yeah,
This podcast could be 4 hours long. Honestly, I've ridden it for 12 miles, and already I just got so much to talk about. So
yeah,
aesthetically, I think it's a beautiful thing.
hmm,
And the the Vision Metron bars, that the all integrated aero bars, just make it stand out so much because it's just so clean. There's no cables and stuff. So that's big difference. Number one is all the cables are internally routed, so aesthetically it just looks fast.
Yeah.
I mean, even without turning a wheel, it's just a fast looking bike. I thought my Venge was a pretty fast looking bike. Nah, the Bianchi's a fast looking bike. And then you get on it, and I kind of rode up the road because the first thing I had to do was just make sure that the tubeless tyres had bedded in and was sat properly. So I just rode up the road, turned around, came back, checked the pressures, and did that a couple of times, and they were absolutely spot on. They were fine.
Brilliant.
So I just riding up the road, and I'm like, ooh, hello. Like, ooh, this is good. And as I said in the video that went up tonight, the first thing that I noticed, which I didn't see coming at all, I rode up the road and went to turn around and just stopped pedaling and just kept going. It was weird. It was almost like the bike accelerated when it was freewheeling. The rolling resistance, there isn't any.
Yeah.
It's so quiet, but it just, you can feel, and that's first number one in terms of money spent. I mean, my bearings and stuff in my wheels I've got on my Venge, I guess they've been in there quite a long time now, but they're reasonable quality, but nothing compared with the Bianchi. The rolling resistance of that bike is negligible.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And that's components, right? That's quality bearings.
Yes.
And and quality bearings cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the bike's got £2,000 worth of wheels on it, and you think, wow, who'd spend £2,000? That's the cost of my first bike.
Yes.
And then you just ride up the road and stop pedaling, and you think, okay, that's why.
Yes. You'll notice I'm not saying a word, viewers, because I just want Peter to just keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. So then the filming plan was to take it to a really nice hill at the back of the Goodwood Hotel, and it's nice because it's quite a long drag. It's probably a couple of miles, maybe 2.5, 3 miles long, and the first half of it goes from between 5 to maybe 9%. So it's a really nice long drag. So I thought that'd be great to do some filming on. So I cycled over there. Next thing I noticed was the width of the handlebars.
Okay.
And again, the Venge I've got, even the Arcadex that I'm using, that's just got off-the-shelf handlebars, which were just a little bit too wide for my optimum bar width, right? So when we did the bike fit, one of the things we did was we chose a narrower handlebar.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what that does on a longer ride, but straight away it feels better.
Yes.
It just feels right. It just felt, and maybe I'm kind of thinking too much about things, but it just felt great. And then the other thing I was super worried about, and I said this in the video as well, was I was really panicking that I'd get on the bike and it wouldn't fit. It would be a too much of a drop down onto the hoods, or it just wouldn't feel right. And I needn't have worried because it just straight away, saddle height was perfect. Reach to the handlebars was perfect. Handlebar height just felt perfect.
Brilliant.
And that kind of, for me, links back to the 2 hours we spent on your fit jig.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing, and don't take this the wrong way at all, but so the bit I was worried about was how you translate the measurements from the fit jig into the build of the bike. And I don't know, taking down a number in the wrong way, or mixing up a number or something, because it's been like 8 months since we did it. I needn't worry because it's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
There's just, now again, a 2 hour ride will tell me a little bit more than an hour long one, but it just feels super, and that, both on the hoods and on the drops.
Yeah.
So that was cool because I'm like, I don't have to ring Paul up and see, can we just take another spacer out of these handlebars, or can we put 10 mil back on the handlebars, please?
Yeah.
Can we just glue? Can we glue some more of that steerer tube back on? So fit wise, really great.
Yeah.
And there's only two more things I'm going to kind of areas of the bike I'm going to talk about. Then we can get on to kind of people's comments and things. I think the next thing is the gears. So the gears are quite different in terms of the way that you change them. And that's just going to take a bit of practice and a bit of time, I think, because on a Shimano Di2 system, you've got two little micro switches that sit just behind the brake levers, up and down, and you change them with your fingers. Whereas on a Campag system, you've got one that you change with your fingers, and then you've got one on the inside of the hoods that you use with your thumbs. And I've just got to get used to that because a couple of times I'm so used to pressing with my fingers. I went to change up gear, and the up gear is the thumb.
Yeah.
So I went to change to go up gear and hit that and actually went down a gear. But that's just getting used to it thing. The bit that is really cool but very weird is the whole sequential shifting thing.
Yes.
Because you're only shifting with one hand, and as you shift up or down, you're just using the right hand shifter. And the shifts are super slick, and it auto trims, and it's very quiet. It's a lot quieter than the Shimano system. And the front changer, when the Shimano front changer moves, there is an audible.
Okay.
The Shimano, the Campag system is a lot quieter. The thing you have to be wary of is as you're sequential shifting, if you're going up through the gears or down, let's say you're going up through the gears, you're on the small ring at the front and you're going up your gears and you get to one of the ratios where the next ratio up requires the front ring to go big, and then what it does is it changes the front ring and then it will change the back derailleur, maybe 2 or 3 gears to get the next appropriate one. That's quite a... You need to almost be prepared for that. I think I need to understand when it's going to happen, because if you're putting power through the pedals when that happens, it's a bit clunky. But that's just, again, getting used to it. But it's cool as.
And that's it. And that's in your MyCampy app. So if you go into MyCampy app, you can actually change the profile of where it will shift inner front ring to outer front ring in comparison to the rear. So you can really get an impression of when that's going to change. But please carry on.
Yeah, and I guess as well, I could go, if I didn't want to do sequential shifting, if I wanted to go back to the more traditional style, I can turn sequential shifting off and just shift normally with front and rear changes independently.
Completely. Yeah. And also remember, you can override it as well. So if you I want to be in that inner chainring right now because I'm feeling load through my legs, you can just hit the thumb button on the left-hand shifter and it will drop you into the inner chainring. So you can do a manual override, or you can just let the system do its job.
So no, amazing, absolutely amazing. The other thing, and we've not mentioned this before, I don't know, have you ever hired a bike in France or in another country?
No, I've always taken my own.
So I don't know why I've just thought of that, but I hired a bike in France. Now in France, they put the brakes on the other side. So in France, in this country, your right brake is your front brake, and your left brake is your rear brake. In France, it's the other way around.
Correct.
So if anyone's listening and they ever hire a bike in France, remember that when you bowl into the first corner.
Yeah.
From personal experience. So and I'm guessing you could, when you build the bike, you can change. You could set up those two shifters either way around to suit your preference. But once it's done, it's done. So you could have the left-hand shifter do the...
Do you know what? I've not delved that deeply into the MyCampy app, but I imagine...
Oh no! As in, once it's wired in, because the wire will go from the shifter to the...
Oh, sorry, we're talking brakes, not shifters.
No, shifters. I was saying, when you set the bike up, when Steve built the bike, if I'd have said to him, I want the left-hand controls to change the rear derailleur and the right hand to change the front derailleur, you
Yeah,
could
so
do that.
you'd do that.
Once it's
No,
wired
so you
in.
do that
Yeah.
through the MyCampy app. So
Oh, can it?
so if we're talking brakes, they're hydraulics. So if
Yeah.
somebody wanted the bike building with Euro style or UK style,
Yeah.
you'd need to do that at point of build, because that's then
Yeah.
basically taking off the hydraulic hose, swapping those over in the handlebars, which you know what type of job that is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rebleeding the system, and you'd swap them back over again. But the beauty about an electronic shifting system is the fact that the shifters are not mechanical. They are pure micro switches. So through the
Yeah.
app, you could probably, and the only reason why I'm saying probably is I've not done it, because I've never been asked to do it.
Maybe the question is, why would you ever
Yeah,
want to
but
do it?
no, I think it's a really the micro switch is just, you are telling the micro switch what you want it to do. So I imagine if you wanted manual control, you could potentially do the brake lever based micro button that sits behind the brake lever as your
Yeah.
front derailleur left and right. And you could
Whoa.
do the thumb lever, your rear derailleur left and right. So if you wanted to move the rear
Yeah.
derailleur towards the right hand side of the bike, so into a smaller sprocket, you hit the left hand thumb
Yeah.
lever.
Wow.
Or
Okay.
you can, yeah, exactly. It's a micro shifter.
But that would be wired in at build, because the wires go to the different.
No. That's a software thing. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
So
Okay.
all the wire.
Okay. We don't need
No,
to do
no,
that though.
exactly.
Just chill.
But you've hit the nail on the head. That's the beauty about an electronic shift system. You can pretty much tailor the buttons to how you intuitively want to shift gear.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Mind blown.
yeah.
Again.
Oh, by the way,
So yes.
have we ever
Yeah.
mentioned why the brakes are the different way rounds in the different countries? Have we
No.
not?
No.
Oh,
No. Go on. You're bound to know. Here
there
you
we
go.
go. Yeah, I
Incoming.
was missing that. Right. So, do you know the
Yeah.
reason why they're the other way around? So
I've no
they're
idea. Because they drive on the wrong side of the road.
they drive on their correct side of the road. So,
You're just scared of getting
in,
negative comments from people on the mainland Europe continent.
indeed, yes, those people who drive on the other side of the road to the UK, we applaud you. Right.
Yeah.
So the reason being is that global legislation, so road traffic laws, state that if you drive on the left-hand side, or basically, if you are hand signalling, the hand that retains on the handlebar of a bicycle when you are
Yes.
crossing traffic must be
Yeah.
operating the back brake. So when you are on the left-hand side of the road, like in the UK, you are crossing traffic, so the left-hand brake lever needs to be the back brake. When you are on the right-hand side of the road, therefore you are crossing traffic, turning left, your hand must be on the rear brake, which is the right-hand lever. And that is why they are the different size.
Is there anything that you don't know?
Um,
Seriously?
yeah, so there we go.
I mean, you need to get out more,
I,
mate. I tell you.
I do, but you're in
Okay,
Chichester.
so
It's the only time I actually get to have a
let's
drink
drink
with
some
my
more
mate.
Malbec. Cheers.
So yeah, so that is the reason why they're on the.
By the way, if you're listening to this podcast, Paul and I both have a bottle of Malbec open. It's been a
a long
long
day.
day. Okay, so then the last thing, and actually, oh no, there's two. Oh no, there's another thing as well. Two more things, I promise.
Incoming.
Next thing that stands out a mile, and it's not that easy to quantify, but it's about how it
Okay.
feels, is when you put your foot through the cranks. Oh my God, does that bike change
Yes.
speed quickly? I mean, I'm not that fit at the moment, and the bit that it's a fantastic motivator, that bike, because I went out and rode it and went, oh my god, I need to get fit, because when I'm fit, this bike's going to be a weapon. It there's no loss of energy at all. You put your foot down on the crank and it goes straight out the back wheel and pushes you along the road. It's phenomenal. Like really phenomenal. And the pickup's super quick as well. I'm guessing that's to do with the Paul springs in the rear
it's just
cassette.
everything, Peter.
Excuse me. Did you notice that? Did you notice how? Was that?
I'm arguably impressed.
Well, I know what a Paul spring is. I remember, and the number of them. It was just like bang, gone. It the change of speed was phenomenal. Like and both when you stand up, if you're going up a grade and you come out the saddle and you go up and you just it's like proper speed.
Yeah.
And I did do some. I didn't go. I probably maxed out about 40 miles an hour, I think. I didn't want to go too much quicker because I want to build myself up to it. I want to learn the bike before I start going really stupid. But
sorry, here's a question then. So at 40 miles an hour, compared to your Venge at 40 miles an hour, how did the stability and control feel?
I could have taken my hands off the steering wheel.
Off the bars?
Off the handlebar. I could have gone non-handed. Yeah. It was super stable. Super stable. Much more than, I mean, I'll quite happily do. There's a few big hills near us where when we go out, we'll often hit 50 miles an hour, and on the Venge, that's a bit 10p, 50p to be honest. But on the Bianchi, I don't think it will be. And then the last bit, and actually this is the shout out to Bianchi, which is why I've left it to the end, is the bit that we talked about countervail a lot. And the quality of the frame and the fact that you spend your money on the frame. And we must have banged on about that in this series of videos and podcasts until the cows come home. Spend your money on the frame. So that's about as good as frames get, right? And then it's got this countervail material in it. And that's the thing that reduces your harmonic vibrations.
I'm totally impressed.
When you're riding that...
Yeah.
I know. When you are, it's about 70 to 80% of harmonic vibrations are removed by countervail, I think you believe. When you're just cruising along at, let's say, 18 to 20 miles an hour, it's that there is no vibration on the bike. Compared with my Venge will rattle your fillings out. It's so smooth. And you sit on it and you think, oh, wow. I mean, I just want to do 100 miles full teeth on that bike because it's just going to... It's like, it's unbelievable. And that for me, of all the things, the difference between a 6-gram bike and a 13-gram bike, some people can go, oh, you could get a countervail bike for $6,000. Is the rolling resistance, the turn of speed, and the countervail. All of those things are amazing. The group set, the Super Record EPS group set, if I'm honest, it's a lot of money and it's a beautiful thing. But I'm sure if you bought, just the Super Record without the electronic shifting, or if you went to Shimano and bought an Ultegra group set, you'd still have an amazing bike. It would be fantastic. So the Super Record EPS is the most lavish thing on the bike, I think. I think everything else on it, I can justify the frame, I can justify the handlebars, I can justify the wheels. The group set is the thing I struggle to justify because it's well, the group set cost more than I spent on my Venge.
Yes. But Peter, what have we said through this entire series from day one? Priority number one. You are better. You are a damn sight better looking than me, and even though you are older, you're younger, right? So
frame.
Priority number one.
Frame.
Priority number two.
Frame.
Priority number three.
Frame.
Thank you. So always, everybody, spend your money on the frame, because the vast majority of what Peter is talking about right now is a thanks to a really high quality, high spec frame. The wheels aid that frame to move along the ground. And then the group set allows you to put power through the frame and wheels onto the road. But ultimately, Peter is absolutely right in what he says. If you fitted a Shimano 105 transmission to that wheel
that
set,
costs you like 500 quid.
yeah, to that wheel set and that frame, you will get a much better bike than a cheap frame with a cheap set of wheels with a super record EPS drivetrain on it.
Yeah. And I kind of said in the video, I said it a bit. So, if you think, okay, let's put some very rough numbers and shoot me down if I'm wrong. So frame, $5,500 ish.
Yeah. So when you bought the bike, it was $4,750.
Okay.
It's
right. Okay. So not even that then.
Yeah. It's now. Oh, in fact, actually, I'm being tested here myself. It's now, I think, just over 5 because there's been more price increases since. So basically about 5.
I was doing rough.
Yes.
I was doing rough and ready.
Yes.
So $5,000 frame.
Yeah.
You could maybe put £1,000 wheel set on it, and you could put Ultegra
12 to 1,500 quid wheel set. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew you'd start pulling me apart. So you could have an Ultra XR4 with a pretty decent wheel set and a pretty decent group set for
7-8 grand. 7-8 grand.
8 grand.
Yeah, we'll get you probably 80% of where you've got to.
Yeah.
But that 20% is worth the extra. Right? Yeah.
Right on the first video, I'm sure you said, I said, can you buy speed? And you went,
oh yeah.
Mate, you can.
Yes.
And what I really can't wait to do is to go out on the routes that I have around my house that I do a lot, and the Strava segments that I do a lot, and just see what my numbers are going to look like. Because I can't wait till next year to do some longer sporty riding and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I just know it's going to be an utter weapon.
Yes.
I am, and I am actually one of the downsides of it, and I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I am super conscious of the fact of how much it's worth when I'm riding it on 2 levels. One, if I get knocked off by a car or fall off it, it's going to cost a lot of money. But I might have some scruffy pikey nick me bike and run off with it, and I'm quite worried about. There's parts of London I won't ride through at the moment because they're having bikes nicked and stuff. So you are aware that you're on a very expensive bit of kit, but oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But let's cover off a few of the comments that were made on the video, the build video, because although we've talked about them before, so
just for folk who aren't watching this on YouTube and they're just listening to this in the car, the noises that you are hearing in the background is not going to the toilet, but is topping up our wine.
Yeah, because it's the end of the day.
Yes,
and I'm home alone tonight, so I'm allowed to do that. I'm gonna be reasonably controversial here.
Yes,
there are still people going on about brakes.
Yeah.
Disc versus rim brakes.
Yes. Yeah.
And there were a couple of comments, and I don't think they were malicious comments. They were just like
there was no
when we talked about how when we talked about how heavy the bike was. A few people said, "Well, if you put rim brakes on it, it would be lighter."
Yeah. So first of all, I think we should cover this off. All of your comments that were in the build video, and I hope the comments that come into the video that's just gone out about first ride and also these podcast videos, keep them coming, because there was nothing malicious at all.
Probably a misuse of a
sure
word.
It was really good, and I felt when I read the comments that they were more I'm fishing for yes, absolutely. I'm fishing for information as opposed to making a point to you. So thank you so much to all of you guys for just keeping it right. However, there are people who are missing the point. let's
So
yeah.
So I in the video tonight, because the interesting thing is, as of recording this podcast, a bit like last week actually, you haven't seen my bits to camera that I did. So I covered this off in the video tonight, and I said, look, the couple of things about disc brakes. Firstly, I wanted a disc brake bike, which there you go. I wanted a disc brake bike. I didn't want a caliper bike. I've got a caliper bike. I wanted a disc brake road bike. Next, actually, interestingly, the Ultra XR4, and again, Mr. Everything you know about biking, correct me if I'm wrong, the Ultra XR4 is one of the few frames you can buy today where you could actually spec a caliper brake anyway.
Do you know?
Most manufacturers will make the choice for you and just give you disc, whether you want it or not.
Do you know, it's going to be a bit not all you know, because I'm not sure for 2022 whether there is a rim brake option. There possibly is, but I have not seen yet the 2022 Bianchi full lineup. But
because the interesting thing,
sorry, just finish that off, Peter. Yeah. But all I will say to anybody is, I have not ordered a road bike with a rim brake since 2019. Wow. That was the last time I ordered a non-rim brake, a non-disc brake bike was 2019. Wow.
And you're ordering quite a lot of bikes at the moment.
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah.
So you know, and I guess the other thing is maybe a contributing factor to that was the factory team rode rim brakes because the service vehicles carried rim brake spare wheels, right?
That's right.
The factory team weren't able to get their support car up to the front of the peloton, so the decision was made: we'll ride rim brakes because that's the quickest way to get a puncture sorted.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of people then
and now the support vehicles carry disc.
Oh no, I don't know about that. I honestly don't know about that. But basically, a lot of people misconstrue that with the speed of changing a wheel from because of the through axle system versus your open quick release was slower, which is why they. But no, the reason being was that the support cars, Mavic, who basically does the generic wheel changing, didn't carry a disc brake option. They only carried a rim brake option. So the fastest way of them getting a puncture replaced was with the Mavic service vehicle. Whereas your bigger manufacturers like Specialized and Trek and Giant and what have you, they had their own massive support cars, so they could just be on site at any time.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. So yes, I happen to have chosen a bike, a 2021 model bike, where I could have spec'd rim brake, but a lot of other manufacturers and other bikes you couldn't have done anyway. Yeah. So it's an irrelevant conversation. Yeah. So we went for disc, and the two reasons that we went for disc. Number one is I wanted to run a 28mm tubeless tire because one, it would give me a better ride quality, and also for the wheels in terms of aero and all that kind of stuff, that's what they're work better with. We'll come on to some onto. I know you're dying to jump in here, and the second reason was there was the wheel that. What was the second one? Oh, they look cool. No, I guess. Oh no, I know. It's been a long day. It's been a long day, people. The second reason was I've just put £2,000 worth of wheels on my bike, and I don't want rim brakes basically using my carbon fiber rim as friction material. And having spent yesterday with Alcon brakes learning about how brakes work, believe me, I want a little consumable brake pad doing the wearing, not the rim of my £1,000 wheel. Thanks. Yes. And that's the reason. Now, why I kind of held you back there, because I know it's a bit like I'm going to unleash you now, is there will be people out there. And in fact, when I did Paris-Roubaix, I've got caliper brakes on my Giant, and I think I ran 28 mil Roubaix tyres on it. Might have been bigger actually, but boy, did you had to let the tyre down to get them on through the caliper and then inflate them back up again. So it's not that you can't fit them; it's the tolerances that you need really. And if you're selling the bike as a bike
Yeah.
shop, you can't sell a bike that's not within the tolerances the manufacturer specifies.
That's exactly it. So one of the reasons why, and the Bianchi Owners Club website doesn't, or Facebook site does an absolutely brilliant job. They're wonderful people, and the people who basically started it and run it are just lovely, lovely people. They're so passionate about Bianchi, and they asked us when we did the last iRide ride, which is the where Bianchi owners of the Bianchi Owners Club go to various bike shops and go and do a local ride out from that Bianchi shop. We've got talks with them at the moment about doing something with Petrol Ped and what have you. So it's really exciting, and they're lovely people. But they asked us to be a little bit of a sort of technical advisor for the forum groups, and I stopped eventually because if I had a pound for every time where I said, no, you can't fit a 28 millimeter tyre into a standard dual pull, single bolted caliper bike, because just because something physically goes into a space doesn't mean that it's within the tolerances that the manufacturer has given. So, for example, there needs to be between the tyre and anything around the tyre, whether it be the frame or the brake caliper, there needs to be a minimum of 4 to 5 millimeters of physical clearance in all directions. So if you get something to physically fit in something with 1 to 2 millimeters and with an absolutely die true wheel, you rotate it around and go, nothing's rubbing there. Well, the moment you get out of the saddle and you start putting power through the pedal, you're going to start flexing the wheel ever so slightly. And that you can sometimes hear through brake rub left to right. But worse than that, you can actually get that on the frame itself. So Trek, Bianchi, Shimano, they all require a minimum of 4 to 5 millimeters of full clearance around the tyre and around the rim of clearance within the frame and the brake caliper. And one of the beauties about a disc brake is you then eliminate the clearance issue because the braking surface and the braking performance is down by where the frame is. And the second reason is what we love about disc brake is you can go and put a set of £2,000 wheels on there, and every single time you hit the brakes, and particularly when we're talking about guys who are the size and weight of Peter and me, right? So Peter is not heavy for somebody at 6'4", 6'5". He's very trim, but
85
right,
kilos.
so you're 85 kilos in weight. So every single time you are pulling that brake lever on, you are hauling up 85 kilos of rider mass, plus your water bottles, plus your bike. So you're the best part of 100 kilos. And every single time you pull the brakes on, would you rather be wearing down a £25 pair of brake pads, a £70 consumable brake rotor, or a £1,000 wheel rim?
Duh.
Exactly.
And for me, so on my Venge, I've got deep rim wheels, but they're Mavic Cosmic Carbonis, but they've got a metal or an alloy rim and then a carbon fiber fairing. But your one's on because you've got rim brakes on your Monda, right? So and your
I've got the same wheel.
What a lovely bike, by the way.
It's
You got the same wheel as me, but the rim version. But chuck some pound notes out your back pocket when you
That's
pull your
exactly
brakes
it. And I currently, because I've not ridden my bike basically for 2 years because we've been so busy in the shop, I'm heavier than you and shorter than you, right? So I'm a wee fatty at the minute. And the thing is that every time I pull my brakes on, I know how many shillings I'm literally burning into the air.
Yeah, so there we go. So that's why.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other reason, I said, but rim brakes would be lighter. Well, I'm going to cover this one off because the bike weighs 8
Yeah.
kilos or 8.15
Yeah.
kilos, which is
No.
nothing. But what do you then do to the bike? I'm then going to put a couple of 750ml water bottles on it for a long ride, which is 1.5
Yeah.
kilos. I'm going to be carrying a toolkit with me, which is probably, I don't know, 250,
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
grams, something. I don't know how much. I've never measured how or
No,
weighed
because you
my
don't
tool.
care, do you? No.
No, not really. So I'm not. I'm like everybody I've shown the bike to, and the cool thing about having an expensive bike, by the way, is you show it to everybody. Is the very first thing you do is pick that up, and everyone goes, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
so light. Now, yes, maybe having a different braking system, I might have had a slightly lighter bike, but it would be measured in like tens of grams,
Yeah.
probably.
Maybe 150 to 250 grams lighter, right? But ultimately,
Really?
compared to rolling on a 28 millimeter tire and the lack of
Yeah.
cash that is being pulled on those brakes at any one time, it is nothing.
Oh, and we have done this in the podcasts before, but hey, look, we're repeating it because it's useful. And the bit because I'd never ridden a bike with rim brake, and I didn't know whether you were meant to bed brake pads in on a road bike, but
Yeah.
I did.
Yes.
Just was a bit
Yes.
gentle and stuff. So I haven't done a full blown brake pad or brake effort yet. But in the
Yes.
wet, the brake disc is right in the middle of the wheel. The brake rim is right
Yes.
by the puddles. So surely they've got better braking performance in
Yeah.
adverse conditions than the road.
And they just do. Yeah.
So it's like, so yeah, anyway, so that was one. So I think we've covered that
Yeah.
one to death. There was the weight thing, and as I said, we never built that bike as a weight thing. If I wanted to weight, I'd have bought a Specialissima. By the way, people, head over to your Criterium Psychosocial channels, because that Specialissima that you built last week, which I saw when I was up
Yes.
in the shop,
That's
what a
really
thing!
nice.
What
Yes.
a colour!
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Has the owner ridden it yet?
Oh, no, actually, you've got it wrong. That's another one.
Oh, that I was doing code
Yeah.
word.
No. No,
That's
that's
not
not
Richard's
Richard's
bike.
bike.
Is it the
No.
same colour?
So the
Oh,
bike that is currently on Instagram at this moment in time is
yeah.
a raw carbon and rainbow effect Bianchi colorway, and that is an off the peg stock bike. So anybody who
What?
is looking for a 55 centimeter brand new 2022 Ultegra Di2 12 speed on a Specialissima frame, we have one in stock right now.
Mate, and it's like drop dead, like
It's
really drop dead.
gorgeous. Yeah. But then wait till you see Richard's bike.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we talk about it in a later episode of Cycle Sunday. So
Yeah.
for the guys listening, you've seen Richard on the podcast or listened to Richard on the podcast. Is Paul's brother and partner in crime, but he has a Specialissima, so a Bianchi Specialissima. That he spec'd at the same time I spec'd the Oltre, actually, and the color and the Bianchi writing is in something called, is it mermaid scale?
Mermaid
Yeah.
scale. It's fucking gorgeous.
And the
Yeah.
color,
Yeah.
although the color is greenish blue. which is like, whoever thought that was a good name for a colour. But mate,
But
I
what is
assumed
the
that was
colour?
Richard's bike.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's
But the
that
colour
that's
is
a
the
stock bike.
colour
It's
is
greenish blue.
greenish blue. Yeah, but you'd think
Yeah,
they'd think of something like Diavolo blue or something. Some really cool colour. But anyway.
yes,
So yeah,
yeah,
and I think pretty much that the other comments were a lot of just about the relaxing nature of that video in terms of watching it, and I'm so pleased that people said that, because the inspiration for that video, we talked a bit about it last week in the podcast, was G Milner
yeah,
and the way he films his bike builds with background music and and I really wanted that to be the case, and I'm so chuffed. When I saw that comment, I was like, "Oh man, that's it. That's for me. That's all I wanted." Was it? It
yeah,
was a relaxing thing, and we put our own spin on it and stuff.
yes.
But yeah, it's a super bike, and I for me that bike. Oh, by the way, podcast listeners, I keep thinking of things. I've had a busy day. Podcast listeners, Paul held from me my gear ratios for quite a long time, and
Well, I didn't.
no, but you said they would be
I,
appropriate,
exactly.
and that could have been anything, but actually they were more appropriate than I thought they were going to be. So
Yeah.
the gear ratios, and again we covered that on the video, but it may be worth just briefly talking about, actually, because one of the options when you choose a group set like that is you can kind of choose what ratios you want. So
Yes.
we've gone for what I'd call quite a climbing profile in terms of gears, not as much as Richards, and we'll maybe talk about that in a moment, actually.
Hmm.
So the front chainring is what's often referred to as a compact chainring. So
Yeah.
big gear ring is 50 teeth, and the
Yes.
small one is 34.
Correct.
And then the rear cassette is a 12-speed cassette. So that's another difference, actually, because my
Yeah.
Venge is only 11-speed, but it's
Yeah.
an 11 to 32.
Two. Correct.
So my current bike is an 11 to 28. So
Yes.
actually, there's another difference, and I actually only put it in the granny gear once just to see what it was like, and it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and interestingly, one of the reasons why 12 speed over 11 speed is that your first seven teeth, so
Mm.
from the number 11 to 17,
Yeah.
is only one tooth difference.
Wow.
Okay, so when you're cruising in your sort of higher gears,
Yeah.
so your outer chainring, and you're from gear 17 down to 11,
Yeah.
cadence is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You always want that. That one's too easy, that one's too hard. You always want that absolutely perfect ratio.
Yeah.
So from 11 through to 17, there's only one tooth difference on an 11 to 32 12-speed Campag cassette.
Wow.
As you then start going from 17 teeth up to 32, you then start getting your bigger ramp jumps. But that's because as you start getting steeper and steeper and steeper on climbs, the ground speed of the bike is slowing down, your cadence you're trying to maintain, and therefore the jumps in between the gear ratios are starting to become slightly less important at that point.
Yeah.
So for anybody going, oh, I've got a 8 speed or 9 speed or 10 speed or 11 or 12, that is one of the reasons why going for more sprockets is important, is not because you get an ultimately better first gear or top gear, but because the jumps in between, you're getting a wider range.
Yeah. And
Is that helpful? Hopefully that's helpful for everyone.
I'm so pleased, because that's pretty much what I said in the walk around.
Oh, great. Excellent. Oh, well
Because
done.
I said, the top gear is exactly
Yeah,
the same on my Venge. It's a 50 to
correct.
11, so it's no different at
Correct.
all.
Correct.
Interestingly, actually, when I bought my Venge, and it had so my Venge had 105 on it. It had a standard front chainring. I think it had a 54
No, so standard is 53.39.
Yes.
That is standard.
Yes.
And mid compact is 52.36.
Oh no, I had one of those. Yeah, I had one of those. So I know
Right.
it
So
had a bigger one at the front.
so that's mid compact.
And then I changed it because it was more of a fast flat road bike. I think the
Right.
way it was geared. Um,
So that is why I kept saying all the way through appropriate,
yeah,
because a mid compact in 1132 is what I've got fitted onto my Monda.
yeah,
But I knew after riding the Marmot that I would have personally been happier with a compact in 11 to 32, because when you're climbing for the best part of 3.5 hours,
you just want to spin, right?
yeah, you just want to spin. Yeah, you just need get out of jail free
I'm
cogs.
just like, please, can I have
Yeah.
the amount of times on my Venge I go, can I have another one?
Uh,
And I've
do
got
you
another
know
one.
you're right, and with the plans that we had going into this whole project,
Yeah, more
of
like
where we're going to
Stelvio.
ride. Yeah, exactly. So where we're going to ride, how we were going to ride, the sportifs we wanted to enter. I felt personally that even though Peter has got probably the greatest set of levers on any person, I mean, 95 centimeter inseam, absolutely perfect levers to push a big gear. Ultimately, when you're riding for 3.5 hours uphill at an average of 7-8%, you just need to spin a gear.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the key thing about a custom build bike. So when you're building a bike from a ground up, is you get to talk to the client as an individual, and you get to learn about what they want to do with the bike, where they want to ride, and then with your own experience you can then help that individual to say, okay, the fashion is lending towards a 52.36 and 11 to 32, but have you considered that if you want to go and do the Fred Whitten in the Lake District, if you want to go and do the Marmot with these big long climbs for many, many hours,
mm,
you probably just need to get to a point where you just need to spin a gear.
yeah,
If somebody lives in Norfolk or Lincolnshire and what have you, and please don't hit in the comments, we know it's windy, we know it's hard, we know there's bigger hills than most people take credit for, but you can probably get away with an 11 to 32 cassette and a mid compact, and on
yeah,
those flatter tailwind sections you'd appreciate those slightly higher gears to push those gears.
yeah,
So the point we're trying to make is that choosing gear ratios is just like Formula One teams and
yeah.
Caterham Academy would do per race track. We want to try and help people with that as well.
Yeah, no, it was, and actually, again, it's one of those things that I want to try out, but I'm really excited because it it's funny to the guys that are listening to this that aren't mega into their cycling, because the great thing about Cycle Sunday for me is there was a couple of comments. I don't do bikes at all, but I found this fascinating watching the
It's
bike
brilliant,
video,
isn't
and
it?
that was like that's for me that one view justifies me making that video because that
Yes,
for me it was great. But you might think, well, hold on, you've gone from 28 to 32 teeth on a. Is that going to make a big difference? Well, I tell you, yes.
yes,
when
yes.
when when I did Mont Ventoux, one of the climbs on Mont Ventoux, which is the second one I did. So all the climbs up Mont Ventoux they're up between 21 to 25 kilometers long. There's three of them. You do them in a day.
Yeah,
And the one from Malacine, there is a section on that is 10 kilometers long that doesn't go below 10%.
yeah,
And it is brutal, right?
yes,
If I'd have had those extra four teeth, oh my
yeah,
God, that would have been
yes,
amazing. So I'm really
yes.
excited about that. And because interestingly, Richard's bike, the specialist move we've just been talking about, he's got a 34, 11 to 34, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So he's running a
An extra couple of teeth.
mechanical. Yeah, so he's running a mechanical drivetrain
Yeah,
again from Campag, which is a Campag record. So the set that sits underneath Super Record, and because everybody knows that adding the word super to any word that you speak is always better.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody knows that that's super true.
It's super. In fact, I used that a bit too much filming yesterday. I used super three times in one sentence. And I
Really?
thought I've edited two of the supers out. Yeah.
So super is always super. So he is using record as opposed to super record. And the beauty about record is the fact that you can add the chorus, which is the group set down from record. You can add the chorus 11 to 34 cassette onto a compact.
Wow.
Now, the reason why we're doing that is not because Richard is fat and unfit. Okay.
Anything
Yeah.
on it. He's probably the thinnest and fittest of the three of us.
Yeah. But the reason
nothing
being,
on him.
but the reason being is he lives in the Peak District.
Yeah.
And there isn't a hill in the Peak District that is below 20%. And the vast majority is 20 to 25%, and it gets steeper from there. So anybody who lives in places like the Lake District or the High Peaks, there's lots of places in North Wales that all achieve those really steep gradients. Or somebody who, our viewers who are abroad, people who are in the Dolomites, people who are in the steeper parts of the
Cornwall,
of the Alps.
just saying.
Cornwall, yeah, no, you're right.
Cornwall's like,
yeah,
it's either straight down or straight up. There's no horrible.
That's right. Those coastal roads where it's really short, sharp climbs all the time. Yeah, those people. My home is Dumfries and Galloway. And Dumfries and Galloway is very rolling hills. So you rarely get, you actually want a slightly higher gear range for people who live in those sorts of areas. So that's why it's that's why we use the term, and we had a laugh about it, but we use that term appropriate all the time because it has to be appropriate for the individual.
Yeah, and we won't nerd out on this one, but the thing I find fascinating actually is when you actually look at how that whole gearing system works with the cassette at the back and the chain rings at the front, the rear derailleur mechanism, the length of the hanger on there, and the way that works, that to keep that I find fascinating. But that's probably for another day.
Yes.
Mate, we've kind of ended up running out of time again.
Really?
Which is a good job because you've emptied your wine glass and you probably want to go and get some more.
Yes, yeah. This is what we refer to as season 2, episode 2 of the Winecast.
We should do a wine cast. It's a good idea.
We should do a Winecast. But seriously, I mean, you said right at the beginning, Peter, this could be 4 hours long. Genuinely, we're not finished. Right?
No, we're not. And
we're finished because, you guys have got things to do as viewers and listeners. But we are not finished. We could literally carry on for another 3 to 4 hours and just dissect this bike. So I want to wrap up with, is it worth spending 13,000 quid on a bike? Yes, because you can speak to a pal of yours for 4 hours and not run out of things to say.
And really bore them. No, so look, I'm gonna end it with a more maybe a sedentary note. £13,000. A few people said I wouldn't spend that on a car, and that's fine, and I get that, and it is a huge amount of money to spend on a bike. However, the kind of reason we did this project was we wanted to kind of show it's no different to a well-known car YouTuber buying a high-end supercar.
Yes,
and you watching that and going, oh wow, look, they've just spent X 100 and 200, 300, 400,000 pounds on a Lamborghini or a whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you watch that and you drool and you kind of experience owning that car through watching that channel.
Yeah.
And when we put this concept together all those months ago, we said, well, neither of us can afford to go out and buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, but what we could do is do the equivalent in a push bike.
Yes.
And what we've built is under no illusions here, is no different than going out and buying the highest grade road car you can imagine.
Yeah.
And actually, and we've said this before, it would actually be the equivalent of buying Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes Formula One car, because the bike I've got behind me, and it is literally, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's literally behind me,
Yeah.
is the bike that you ride in the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia or the Vuelta a España. It is a factory bike.
Yes.
In fact, actually, it's probably better than a factory bike.
It's better because Bianchi is with Shimano,
Mm-hmm.
and they only top out at Dura race.
Yeah. Oh man, don't. My dream was always like, I'd love to have a bike one day with Durace. Well, yeah, Durace.
But
yeah. There's loads of bikes out there with Durace. I've got Campax Super Record EPS. Come on. I can't wait to get out and show people. So one of the things, a couple of things before we finish, is we've obviously got lots more on Cycle Sunday to come, but we've got some really great plans next year.
Yes.
And what I'd love to do next year, and I've had lots of direct messages over the last week, is when are we going to do a group ride? When can we meet up and we have like a Cycle Sunday ride?
Yeah.
And we're on it,
Yes.
people. So, when the weather gets better, because let's face it, this Ultra XR4 behind me ain't going to get ridden a great deal over the winter because it's not getting wet.
Yeah.
But in the spring, we will sort something out, and we will do a kind of ride where you guys can bring your bikes along, meet me and Paul and Richard and Rosie, and we'll go out for a ride. We're not that fast, so don't think we're going to be, but we can ride somewhere really beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in that, put it in the comments. Let us know. Message out to us. But we definitely do that, because this for me is a bike that people need to see.
Yes.
They need to have a look at it, and it's a proper thing.
Yes.
But for now, I reckon that's a good place to finish this podcast, don't you?
I totally do. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's been wicked.
Yeah.
Mate, honestly, mind blown. Bike's amazing.
Yes.
But next week we are all about e-bikes, and actually we're all about Mrs. Petrolped and e-bikes.
Yay.
So next week we've got, and actually I need to film something this coming weekend with Mrs. Petrolped riding her bike after we've modified it for her. So she can actually ride it.
Yeah.
So that's next week. So make sure you tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe if you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, on Cycle Sunday Podcast YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe if you're listening to it on one of the other platforms. Make sure you're following us, give us a rating, all that kind of stuff. It really does help.
Yes.
More than you can imagine.
Yes.
But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. I've got a very, very demanding petrol pup just like pouring me with a toy just to my right. So at this point, I'm going to say I've been Pete Hughes.
And I've been Paul Bowker.
You take care, guys. Ride safe.
Ride safe, everyone.